Hey everyone, welcome back to another session. And this session is from Autumn. And Autumn is a founder of a company called AWB Firm. And we're going to talk about, are you making these expensive legal mistakes as you scale? The theme of the summit as a whole is scaling. And the level that everyone are at is really where we're scaling past 70 years. And so I've had a really nice conversation with Autumn when we were recording our podcast episode. And today I'm so excited for you to be back, Autumn.
Thank you for having me, Natalie. I'm excited to share all the goodness with your folks today.
All righty, let's get it going.
All right, do you want me to go ahead and share my screen? Jump in?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
All right. All right. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so we are going to focus. There are all kinds of expensive mistakes that it's possible to make as you scale a coaching business. But today we're really going to focus on client problems. So let's dive right in. All right, I'll start with my standard legalese. I'm going to go through this intro stuff quickly so we can get to the good stuff. This is not legal advice. Everything in this is just meant to be information. I am a lawyer based in Tennessee. Our law firm is a United States law firm. So everything is based on US copyright and trademark law. So if you are in another place, it might be slightly different for you. But just remember, I am a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer. So if you have questions about anything that comes up today, you guys are at the level where it might be time to talk with a lawyer about your specific questions and get those answers. Okay, so just really quick background. These are some pictures from my legal journey. So I've been a lawyer for over 18 years. I started off working for a judge. You can see me there on my swearing in day. I worked for a copyright litigation firm where represented photographers and sued big companies that were using their photos without permission. You can see my mean headshot there. And now I've got 3 kids. In 2015, I was kind of sick of the law firm rat race and started my own firm. And that has grown slowly but surely into where we are today. So today, this is a recent picture of our team. Today, we've done almost 1,000 one-on-one legal projects. We typically represent anywhere from 100 to 200 clients a year, all online course creators and coaches. So you guys are our people. And we like to think that we are now the go-to law firm for online businesses. So before I dive in to the heavy stuff, I want you to just take a breath and imagine what it would feel like to know you had the right legal protections in place for your business, not just everything you could possibly need, think of, but just what you need right now, the right legal protections. I will tell you, this is me with my friend and client, Amy Porterfield. Covering all your legal bases is just going to give you so much relief. You are going to feel like you can confidently grow without worrying that you're missing something important. So, as you're watching this, I want to just encourage you to be gentle with yourself. I'm guessing most of our viewers here today did not go to law school. So, this is a no judgment zone. If you are, here's something that maybe you've done differently or wish you had approached the way I'm recommending instead of how you did it, just don't sweat it. Please be gentle with yourself and know that there's no judgment coming from this direction. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to focus on 3 areas. So, the first client problem that we see a lot of at our firm with the one on one coaching clients that we work with is refund requests and sticky situations. So, I'm going to go through how you can avoid those specifically with a really solid terms of use. That's your contract with your coaching clients. Number 2, we're going to talk about making sure that your marketing matches your client delivery. And this is something I'm really on a soapbox about because when one of our one on one clients, one of our coaching companies comes to us with a client problem, I would say maybe 75 to 90% of the time, it is often that a client, whether, warranted or not, but a client feels like they were promised X and they were delivered Y. And when there's that mismatch between the marketing and the delivery, that is going to lead to problems. So we're going to talk about how you might approach that. And then last, we are going to talk about kind of where the rubber meets the road, which is, okay, you've done all you can. You've got solid terms of use. Your marketing matches your client delivery, but people are going to people. So we're going to talk about how you might actually handle those sticky situations when they come up, which is kind of how do you enforce your contract? What do you do in those situations? All right. So step one that I want you to take away today is start off on the right legal foot with your students, your clients, whatever you call them, your customers, with a clear contract. Now, this is like, if there's a hill that I'm going to die on, it is this one. And I'm an intellectual property lawyer by training. But what we see day in and day out working with coaching companies is that contracts are a foundational legal protection for your business. They are the most important thing. Almost all problems or stickiness that pops up either comes from a not great contract that wasn't clear or wasn't, is missing some things. Or, if we look at maybe solving one of those issues, we always start with a contract. So that contract is just, it really is, you have to have it. A strong contract is going to just set you up for success. So, why do I like contracts? First of all, they are going to set you up for positive relationships. And I will say, I see this less with coaches than I do with kind of more creative types that we also sometimes work with. But a solid contract does not put a barrier between you and the client. I hear that sometimes like, oh, it's so formal. I don't want to start out that way. No, a solid contract is going to set you up for a positive relationship because it just kind of puts everything on the table. There's no like unsaid expectations or like potential for, one person thinking one thing and the other person is thinking a totally different thing that they're going to get. Kind of lays it all out so that everything is really clear. It helps you build a more positive relationship. Your terms, I love a clear contract. I love plain English. There are some things that we have to have legalese that if we ever had to take someone to court, we need kind of some magic language in there that the judge will know how to enforce things. But for like 98% of your contract, it should be very clear. It should be easy to understand. You should be able to explain it to your client if they have questions. I want it to be that simple. You should not have to be asking your lawyer, like, hey, your client had a question about paragraph 9B. How do I answer them? Like, it should be clear enough that you can answer questions. And it should really set the expectations for both sides. So, what are you going to do as the coach or as the coaching company? What are you going to provide in your program or in your one on one services? And what do you expect from your client? So, you can't do it for them. You are expecting them to show up. Maybe you're expecting them to do some homework or some, reporting their results. There's other things that they have to do, or maybe that you want them not to do. We'll talk about in a minute. You want, the terms for both sides right there, spelled out clearly. I mentioned this already. You want both sides, you want them to be easy to understand your terms. And again, this may be a little bit of an unpopular opinion, but I really am a fan of contracts that are fair to both sides. Of course, if it's your contract as the coach, you are going to put certain protections in there for you. That's normal. But it should not be so like tilted towards you and unfair to them. It sets you off on uneven footing. I'm a big fan of operating in, an ethical and fair-minded business just in generally. I find that is how we avoid a lot of these client problems. That if you're running your business in a way that you're not, embarrassed about, feel good about, you're not going to have a lot of client problems. And so if your contract is fair to both sides, it's going to be easier to enforce it because both sides will feel like they got a fair deal. Lastly, we want to make sure that there's no surprises hidden in there. So your contract should have all of the things that you've talked about during your marketing, on your sales page, in your webinar, in your sales email sequences. If you're having, conversations in the DMs or sales calls, it should all we love good surprises, no bad surprises. It should all be cohesive. All right, so let's specifically what maybe should be in your contract. And, not all of us love to spend a Wednesday afternoon just perusing your contract, but I would encourage you. A lot of us with our contracts, especially client contracts, kind of set it and forget it. Like we may, work with a lawyer or we may get a template. Nothing wrong with either of those, but we often kind of put it once it's on the website or it's loaded into the signature software. A lot of us, we don't look at it again, but it turns out we are online businesses and coaches, we are constantly testing new things or tweaking this, or maybe this will work better. So I encourage you, if you looked at your client contract in a while, and that's what I would encourage you to focus on first, your client contract. Pull it out. And as I'm going through this list, just kind of check and see, do you have these things? Are they handled in a way that makes sense for the current way that you're operating your business? So this is definitely not an exhaustive list of everything that could be in your contract or should, but I'm going to hit on some high points. So if you are taking payment plans, really anything other than a pay in full, you need to spell that out in your contract. Or what some of my clients will do is if they're constantly changing their payment plans and they don't want it, to be in their contract because they want the flexibility to change it, you can include, a term that says basically you agree to the payment plan that was on the sales page or on the checkout page when you registered. Now, the trick is you got to keep a record of that somewhere so that if, Susie Q has an issue that you can pull it up and see especially if you're changing things, you can see which version did she agree to. This is super important, a refund policy. So, nearly every one on one client that we start working with at my firm, at the AWB firm, we often will take them through what we call a legal roadmap session, which is where we look at their whole business, top to bottom. We always start with their contracts. And we always ask, do you have a refund policy? And I would say 95% of the time they say, yes, no refunds. And I say, great. Is that in writing? And then there's often like again, no judgment, but there's often like kind of a, is it in writing? I don't know. And then sometimes we look at their contract and it doesn't say anything about the refund policy. It doesn't say yes or no. It's just silent. That is kind of the worst of all worlds. Maybe you had something about no refunds on your sales page or in your checkout, but if it's not in the contract, now we've got kind of an open question and you're leaving yourself open to problems. So even if your refund policy is no refunds, actually, I would say, especially if your refund policy is no refund, you need to spell it out in your agreement. And if your refund policy is, under certain circumstances, we will, or maybe you have a 14-day money back guarantee, something like that, that all needs to be spelled out as well. This is another item that we find missing a lot is a termination policy. And this just means if someone wants to quit or if you want to kick somebody out or you both decide just to part ways, how is that handled? What happens to any prepayments or remaining payment plans? Do they still get access if you've got a curriculum or some sort of portal? Just kind of spelling out how that's going to be handled. Do you require advance notice or notice in writing? Is there a cancel button in your web portal? Again, just think through best case scenario, how you would want that to play out and put it in writing so that it's very clear. If someone has a question about it, they can find it or you can find it when this comes up. Another thing that I mentioned is that you may want your contract to say not only what your client needs to do, but what they cannot do. And so we have not seen as many of these this year as we had in the past. But if you have a large community or even a small community that, goes with your coaching program, especially if it's a group coaching program, maybe you have a Facebook group for all of your one-on-one clients. I highly recommend that you have some sort of community guidelines in your contract. And this will cut down on the drama dramatically. No pun intended. You can also list those like right on the community site, whether it's a Facebook group or, Mighty Networks or wherever you're hosting it. You can also put it over there, but I like to have it in the contract as well, because then you can say, I spelled out the community guidelines and you broke one of them, so I can kick you out. If it's just posted in the Facebook group and the consequences aren't clear for breaking them, that can leave you open to a little bit of, a sticky situation. I mentioned I am an IP lawyer by background. So we, in all of our coaching client contracts, we have a really robust section that goes over how your clients or your customers can use your intellectual property. So often we find that a coaching program, whether it's a group program or a one-on-one, but if you have kind of a structure or topics that you walk your clients through, you may have curriculum materials, whether that's videos, worksheets. Sometimes, you may have a full workbook, all kinds of materials that you are letting your clients use to, along their coaching journey, which is fantastic. That is really valuable. And that helps you stand apart and build a strong business that you can scale. But we need to make sure that you're protecting that. So we want to have that in your contract. What can they do and what can they not do? Can they share it with a friend? Can they use it with their clients? Like, can they use it in their own business? We see a lot of that. Can they post it on the internet? You probably do not want that. So we want to have very clear guidelines around that. And then the last thing I'll mention is testimonials. So let's say I'm in Susie Q's group coaching program and I put something in the Facebook group about how amazing I thought her module was on scaling my business using Facebook ads. And she, copies and pastes that and puts it out publicly, my name and picture attached. Is that allowed? Maybe, maybe not. Let's go ahead and address that in the contract. So there's no questions later. So, either I've agreed, I'm going to ask your permission before I do that, or I'm going to anonymize it. I'm going to take off your face and picture, or your picture and your name, or, you can ask them to give you blanket permission that anything they share, could be broadcast. So you just want to think of that ahead of time. Because I've seen lots of unhappy clients who did not think that what they had posted was going to be used. All right, so this is just an example. Again, this is from our friend and client Amy Porterfield's website. This is one of her checkout pages. So the last thing I want to mention with your client agreement, especially if you are using a checkout page like this, is that you want to be sure of two things for like an electronic signature to be valid. I get this question a lot. Can I have my clients just, do a checkbox at checkout? Is that legally binding? And the answer is yes in the United States. For almost all Contracts can be executed electronically. The only things that aren't right now, at least I'm recording this on April 26th, 2023, typically things dealing with real estate or family law, like adoptions, things like that. So anything in the, business space like this, totally enforceable as long as the buyer has the opportunity to review the terms before they agree. So you can see here on this page, there's like a little link where you can click through and read the terms and conditions before you check the box. And then there has to be some sort of affirmative action to show that they are agreeing. So if there's a box, it can't be pre-checked. Like they have to do something, take some action, check a box, enter their initials, whatever it is, you can decide. But this is totally legally binding. You do not have to have like an actual DocuSign where you individually send a contract to each of your clients. This will work as long as you do these two things: opportunity review, and they take some affirmative action to show their consent. I've been talking all day. My lips are tired. Okay, and this is the last two things that I'll mention. Here, this is just another example. We've got a really clear refund policy. So I don't want you necessarily to pull like all of your, important terms out of your terms of use onto your checkout page. But for something like this, it can be helpful just to kind of highlight this has a 60-day refund policy. And then again, the chance to review it. Click here for full details. And then she's also got this earnings disclaimer, which is a great practice. This is a more advanced issue. This is something you might want to work with on an attorney because there's specific rules on what your disclaimer has to say, depending on what else is on that website page. The idea there is just to make it very clear that you're not promising that anyone is going to earn a specific amount, that, everybody has put their own effort in, everybody's results may vary. All right. So your action step on contracts is I want you to make sure if you don't have a contract at all, that is very common. So give yourself a break. But now when you have knowledge, you have power. So I want you to protect your moneymaker with a solid contract. So I would recommend, either working with a lawyer or purchasing a template. We have some in our template store at awbfirm.com, super affordable. We'll get you where you need to go as you're scaling your business. This is super important. All right. So step 2, I mentioned this before, making sure that your marketing is matching your delivery. And I find that this is really something that becomes a bigger issue. The further your business gets, the bigger your business gets, the further along you are. You're not the one doing all the client delivery anymore, probably. Maybe you have contractors or other coaches who are helping you. Maybe you have team members who are kind of assembling your curriculum. It becomes kind of a bigger thing to manage. So there's a couple things I would recommend here. I love to use the word matchy-matchy. So your contract should match all the things in your sales page, your emails, your promotions, your webinar. We talked about that already. So we want everything to be cohesive. I mentioned this before as well. We find that disappointed clients are the ones who cause problems. I hate to even say cause problems, but they're the ones who complain. They're the ones who ask for refunds. They're the ones who don't pay what they are supposed to. They're the ones who, cause trouble sometimes in your community if they're unhappy. And what I find here is behind, there's some people who just are maybe going through a tough time, or they have buyer's remorse. This is not 100%. But I would say in general, when I see a problem like this, it is almost always because their expectations were not met. Now, that may be because their expectations were out of line, but it's your job as the coach, as the provider of services, to set the expectations, to make sure they're clear and to reinforce them, to remind them along the way what they should be expecting and that you are meeting their expectations. This is how we avoid problems. Now, here are a couple things that I would encourage you to think about to make sure you are delivering what you promised. I want you to go check all these things, your sales pages, your webinar slides. And one thing I didn't put on here, like if you offer a bonus, like anywhere that you're offering a bonus, we love to include lots of things in our program. We like to make them very rich and just, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm getting all this stuff for what a deal. But if you don't have a way to track that you are actually providing all those things, you are setting yourself up for trouble. So it could be as simple as a Google Doc where you just have like a list of deliverables and then maybe like a date when they'll be available, or where the client can find them, or a checklist to make sure that, you're uploading them all to the portal. The more specific your promises are, the better this tracking system needs to be. So I'd encourage you just to think about that. Again, it doesn't have to be complicated, but I would encourage you to have some sort of system in place and then have a person on your team who owns this, whose job it is to check maybe once a week, once a month, whatever cadence makes sense for you and your business. but making sure that you are delivering what you said you were going to deliver. The next thing I would encourage you, I've actually seen that be a great defense when we have an unhappy client situation come to one of our clients, and I'll call it a customer. An unhappy customer comes to one of our clients, and we are able, and they say, I didn't get what I was promised, blah, 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 blah. And then my client says, the coaching company says, I had this incredible, they were reporting their results every week. I know they made, 50 times the number of, page views that they were before. And I know that their revenue increased by this much. And I know, all these different metrics. If you are tracking client results, you will have kind of ammunition if you have an unhappy client to just remind them you have gotten results from this program. And I'm not saying that's an excuse for not delivering on what you said you would, but that can be really helpful. And then lastly, I will just mention I'm seeing a trend of the skinny offer. And that is often a high ticket offer with really very little included. And it's sometimes marketed as like you're providing a container or, it's just you're curating a community. And I have found that can lead to unhappy clients because even though you did not promise much, when you don't deliver much, if there's like anything that goes wrong, people can get very angry and feel like they spent a lot of money for not a lot of results. All right, so our action step, we're going to evaluate how to track what you promised versus what was delivered. All right, step 3, what if someone complains? I will tell you, the longer you are in business, like this is very normal. You are not going to get to $1 million or more and not have a single unhappy customer. It is just impossible. I will tell you with my law firm, we pride ourselves on incredibly high level of service. We have it's only one or maybe one or two a year, not very many. We have unhappy clients, and some of them we can satisfy, and some of them we just can't. So it is part of business that you're going to have some unhappy happy customers. Hopefully, it's few and far between. But we're going to enforce our contract. Now, I know this is most coaches' least favorite thing. A lot of you are incredibly empathetic. You're incredibly generous. You don't want to get bogged down in legalese, and it doesn't feel good to, get real legalistic with your clients and hold them to it. But I will tell you, it doesn't have to be that way. So, what I would encourage you to consider, like it or not, you are in a negotiation. Probably they've asked you for something that's maybe not exactly what you agreed with, either a refund, discount on a payment plan, extra calls, extra resources, whatever. If somebody's unhappy, they're usually asking you for something that they're not really entitled to. So you're negotiating. Are you going to say yes or are you going to say no? Usually the first thing I do is look at the contract. What did you promise at the beginning that you would both do? And so that is the starting point. It doesn't mean that that's where you end up, that you say, well, the contract says I was going to give you 4 coaching calls and, 3 modules and 4 workbooks. And so that take it or leave it. You can always be more generous than the contract requires. You can, if somebody's going through, their mom got cancer and they just could not get through the materials, you can give them a refund. You can make an exception. You can extend the time period of the program. You can give them extra coaching sessions. It's up to you. It's your business. You can do what you want. But the flip side to that is I want you to remember that every exception you make becomes precedent. And especially if you've got a group program, I think this matters less if you're doing one-on-one coaching and like the people don't know each other. But if you have some sort of group, people are getting to know each other and they are going to talk. And if they are unhappy, believe me, they are talking where you cannot see them if they are unhappy. And if one person says, oh, well, I went to Jane and I asked for a refund. And even though the contract said no refund, she gave it to me. She gave it to all her friends. And then I have seen this turn into a stampede or where it's like, wildfire spreading, where all of a sudden you went from one unhappy client to 10 unhappy clients. And that is not a place that I want you to be. So you can be kind, you could be fair, but you also are in business. I assume, I hope, for the long run. So that means you need to build practices that are going to be sustainable. You can't always be making exceptions. Or if you are making exceptions, maybe you need to have a policy around that to help kind of guide those conversations. So in a negotiation, and should have grabbed my favorite book. It's right over there. I have a favorite negotiation book called Never Split the Difference. It's written by, I'm trying to look, Chris Voss. He was an FBI hostage negotiator. It is fabulous if you are interested in negotiation. But here's some things that we like to do, kind of following some of his tips. So think about what is your leverage. If you're in a negotiation, each side has kind of things they want and things they don't want. So get creative. Maybe it has nothing to do with what's in the contract. Maybe what someone really wants is for you to tell them they did a good job or for you to feature them on your website or invite them on your podcast. I mean, who knows? There's all kinds of things that maybe you could offer that would make them happy, that don't involve money or additional services. So get creative here. You can also think about, that's kind of the carrot. What can you offer them that they would like? The stick would be, what can you threaten them to do, against them that they would not like? So somebody's causing problems. Can you threaten to kick them out? Can you threaten to report them to a credit reporting bureau if they're not making their payments? Last ditch is always threatening a lawsuit. That is, like dropping a bomb. It's very expensive. And I do not ever recommend that. That should be the absolute last resort. But maybe you do tell them, hey, I could sue you. And if I do, my contract says you have to come to Tennessee where I live. Like you could, we can build some protections in there. So may have some leverage that you can use. If you do offer a refund or do anything that goes against your normal terms, I highly recommend that you use a termination agreement. Just kind of setting out what money is being exchanged, what you're agreeing to, just, all in black and white. I'm a lawyer. We love a good contract. At this point, if it's a big deal, if it's causing you a lot of stress and worry, I highly recommend hiring a lawyer. I will tell you at our firm, we deal with this stuff day in and day out. It does not keep me up at night, but I know it keeps my clients up at night. And so when they hand it off to us, it is going to both save them time and worry. And it also will save you money a lot of the time. Even though you're paying the lawyer, we can often get it resolved quickly and to your satisfaction. And then it's like done. And you can be on to more positive things in your business. And the last thing I will say is, again, this is very normal. Congratulations. If you're having unhappy clients, you're in the big leagues. Like you're not going to get through business without this happening. All right, so I'm going to wrap up and toss it back to Natalie, but I will just mention, if you are looking for legal support to your coaching business, if anything that I mentioned during this presentation, kind of get your radar up, our team would love to talk about helping you. You can see our website is awbfirm.com. You can apply to work with us one-on-one. We also have an incredible freebie right now, which is our 2023 online business legal trends report, and you can grab it that link. I'm going to stop sharing.
And love how you said that if you do have unhappy customers, then you are in the big league. I love it.
Yes, it's not a fun way to get to the big leagues, but and part of being in business for a long time.
Awesome. Autumn, well, thank you so much for another great session. I really enjoyed our podcast and then summit. You just outdone yourself. So thank you so much. Everyone, check out the 2023 online business legal trends report. Lots and lots of very interesting information. Autumn, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been my pleasure.
This was great. Bye, Natalie.
Everyone, I'll see you in the next session.